All right. My last public service announcement goes into the flu, or the vaccine rather. Okay, and we do know that we are currently working on a vaccine, but even some myths of current regular flu vaccines, and some of the things that we hear all the time is that, and a lot of these are myths, right? Some of the things that we hear about the flu vaccine is, I've never gotten the flu vaccine before. I got it once and I got sick. Or, when I got the flu vaccine, I felt like crap. Okay. Well, first of all, how is the flu vaccine made, and how does the flu vaccine work before we get to some of those questions? And it's really important to understand how vaccines are made and what they actually do in your body, to understand those things. Okay, so first of all, there's a few different types of vaccines that can be made. The first type of vaccine that can be made is called live attenuated virus. So we basically take a live virus, or an active virus, and we weaken it. And there's a number of ways that you can do that. You can heat it up and essentially render it dead, essentially. Okay, but there's other ways to do that as well, to attenuate or to weaken the virus. Right, and some of those ways would be to give the virus to animals, and to only select the weakest strains of those animals. So it's essentially natural selection, but the opposite is, we're engineering this, and we do that over and over. We give that weakened virus to the next generation of animals, and then we only select the weakest from them. And we do that multiple times, and eventually, what we get in the end is we get a virus that has no ability to cause infection. So it looks the same, your body treats it the same, but it does not cause infection at all. Okay. The second way that we're able to make vaccines is we're able to take this original virus, we're able to chop it up, okay? We're able to break it apart. We get rid of the components that actually cause the disease and the sickness, like the bacteria. And what we're left with then is we're left with these parts over here, the antigens, which these were the surface proteins. This is how your white blood cells, going back over here, let's see if I can find it. This is how your white blood cells identified these. So I like to think of this as kind of like an analogy of, like, I know you've all played video games before, right? So think about like the boss at the end of the level, right? So you spend a couple of hours, you beat the level, you get to the end guy, and it takes forever to beat this guy. He's gigantic, right? He's got all these powers, right? And you can't beat the boss. It takes you hours and hours and hours. And then all of a sudden you figure out the trick. The boss always has a trick, right? There's like, I don't know, you got to hit him in the left eye or something like that 3 times, right? So as soon as you figure out that trick, you immediately know how to beat the boss. Right, so the next time you play that level, you get to the boss. That doesn't take you hours to beat him. It takes you 30 seconds to beat him because you know the trick. Well, immunity basically works that same way. All right, your white blood cells have to go around. They have to identify parts of your body that are not self. And then what they have to do is they have to make these special things called antibodies, which are then able to attach to these things. And then those antibodies then go on to make special white blood cells. And this whole process typically takes a couple of days. And as this is happening, some things that you feel, and reasons you feel sick, are because of the immune response. So your immune system is responding to you being sick. Okay, and some of the things that happen during the immune response are the same exact things that we see happen after you get a vaccine. Okay, so when you get a vaccine, sometimes you feel not so good for at least a couple of hours. Typically for me, if I get a flu vaccine that night, maybe I'm a little tired, maybe I have a spike in fever, a slight runny nose for the night, I wake up and the next morning I'm fine. A lot of people think that they got sick from the virus. You didn't actually get sick from the vaccine, rather. You didn't actually get sick from the vaccine. What's happening is you're feeling the symptoms of your immune response. Your body thinks that you're going to become sick, so it starts to do those things to prepare to become sick. And one of those things it starts to do, it starts to build up white blood cells. That collection of white blood cells sometimes make your throat hurt a little bit. Okay. Another thing that your body does is it will think it's getting sick, so it's going to raise your temperature and give you a slight fever. Okay, because the fever helps to reduce the spread of the virus. Maybe you have an increase in I don't know, snot or whatever, right? And that's going to help prevent new viruses from getting in and help prevent viruses from sticking to your tissues. So all of these things have a function to help prevent you from getting sick. So when you take a vaccine, your body thinks that you're getting sick, although you're not actually getting sick. Now, I don't know about you, all right, but even though that stinks to not feel well for a couple of hours, I'll take that any day over getting the actual flu. Okay? And I do know that that the flu doesn't necessarily, even if you get the vaccine, it doesn't necessarily protect you against getting the flu. All right? And how and why does that happen? Well, we basically have to take a guess, right, at what strains. There's a bunch of different strains of flu. We have to take a guess at which strain is going to be here during the flu season. So the way that we do that is we go to other parts of the world that are currently having their currently having their flu season, which for us in the United States would be in the other hemisphere. So we go to places like Australia and South America, and we look at those places to see which strains are prevalent, which strains are not. Okay, and we typically use a whole bunch of math to try to make predictions at which strains are going to be here. Now, sometimes we do really well, and we have like a 70% success rate, and other times we kind of miss. All right, and maybe the strain that hits us the hardest was not included in the vaccine. Right, but some of the other things that we see, if you get a vaccine, your symptoms, even if you get the flu, your symptoms are usually greatly reduced. Now, I like to think of it, right, almost like my new truck that I bought. All right, so this is me. There's my new truck, and I don't know if you're watching this thing. Maybe you know that I've been in a couple of accidents. I don't know. Maybe it's me. I don't think it is. I think it's the other people. But I've been in a few accidents. So for me, when I was buying my new truck, I wanted every single Butters enough. I wanted every level of protection that I could possibly do. So for me, I thought it was really important to spend the extra few $1,000s on the pre-collision system. Okay, so what does that pre-collision system do? Does that pre-collision system, if my truck thinks that it's imminent that I'm going to hit somebody in front of me, it's going to apply the brakes. Okay, does that pre-collision system guarantee me that I'm not going to get into an accident? No, it certainly doesn't. But it will greatly reduce my risk of getting in an accident. So if I'm, fidgeting with my stereo, maybe that's happened before, maybe it hasn't, right? And I'm not paying attention, and I slam into this guy, or if I miss my brakes, that pre-collision system might protect me, or hopefully will protect me against getting into an accident. It doesn't necessarily guarantee me from getting into an accident, because I could also be hit by somebody else. If we're relating to the flu analogy, somebody else that has the flu, even if I buy the pre-collision system, right, somebody else that has the flu might still give it to me, or somebody else that is in a car might still hit me or rear end me, even if I have the pre-collision system, right? But I'll take a 50% reduction in my chances of getting an accident any day. And what's really important to note here is that if everybody were to buy the pre-collision system, that's where everybody would start to see the benefits. If I bought the pre-collision system and this guy bought the pre-collision system, right? My car stops on its own and I save from getting in an accident. But this guy also has pre-collision system and he doesn't get in an accident with me either. And that's really quite important when we look at vaccines as well. And that's what we call herd immunity. Okay, so when every single person gets a vaccine, it limits our exposure, right? And greatly reduces the risk. And that's really quite important. So there's lots and lots of reasons to get vaccines, even if you think that I'm a young, healthy individual. It doesn't matter, because if I get the flu, I'm not going to die from it. But your sickness will be reduced, and you have a far less ability to spread that to other people. If everybody gets the vaccine, then we are able to completely eliminate it. So I think that's really quite important. So hopefully, my time's running out here. Hopefully you learned a bunch of things, and I don't know, start some conversation.